Ketogenic diets have become synonymous with lowered inflammation. But what's the mechanism? How does that work? We're going to look at some fairly recent research and talk about what the science is behind that. And also we're going to talk about a little bit of my own experience with inflammation and a ketogenic diet.
So inflammation is very easy to understand when we think about a cut on our hand, right? So you cut your hand and you've got redness and swelling and the tissue around it hurts. What we don't think about is inflammation happening inside of us. And if you think about that same type of reaction happening inside of your arteries and inside of your cells, it shows you just how damaging inflammation can be.
Right. So ketogenic diets have gotten this reputation of being somewhat anti-inflammatory, but why is that? So the primary factor of this inflammatory effect is, I think, simply the dietary change that comes about. So we've eliminated sugars, right, and sweeteners like honey and high fructose corn syrup. We've eliminated grains. We've eliminated starchy vegetables like potatoes and corn. We've eliminated vegetable oils. We've eliminated processed foods.
Right, and you're describing a well-formulated ketogenic diet, right? And in our more modern take, sometimes that on keto diets can involve a lot of processed foods. So we're talking really about a well-formulated diet.
Right. You can still technically be on a ketogenic diet and then eat some kind of crappy stuff.
Yeah, you can hit your macros for sure.
So let's talk about these things. So eliminating the sugar, obviously that's going to keep your blood glucose way down or at least stable from where it might have been. We know that chronically high blood glucose and high insulin is an inflammatory factor. The grains, many grains have glutens, which are highly inflammatory to some people.
Yeah, some people more so than others, but that's one of those buzzwords that we hear, glutens, if you're not familiar. It's protein found in certain grains, specifically wheat, barley, and rye are very high, but you can also find it as an additive in sauces. Seasoning packets will often have it, so that can cause inflammation in some people that are sensitive to it.
Right, and I think we may have mentioned long ago that you can even find gluten in Twizzlers.
Oh yeah, I believe they are.
I mean, it's like, why would you put gluten in that? But that's the way it goes. And so starchy vegetables, potatoes and corn. Now those are going to kind of, raise your blood sugar a little bit more.
Right, so maybe a little bit more indirect.
A little bit indirect, yeah. The vegetable oils, really inflammatory.
Well, I think if we're looking at inflammatory foods, they have to be on top of the list. And the one that we are consuming the most is soybean oil. Turn over any ingredient list in the middle of the grocery store and you'll find soybean oil. But the problem with these vegetable oils is that they're very high in the inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids, but they're also extracted using harmful chemicals and high heat, which causes them to degrade. And they also will cause that inflammation, but they'll cause the degradation or the oxidation of cholesterol, which makes heart disease much more likely.
Right, that's a bigger factor. And now we come to processed foods that kind of encompasses all the things we've just talked about. That typically processed foods are going to contain a lot of the things in that list we just mentioned.
Yeah, we don't outrun it, right?
No.
We don't outrun the poor diet.
No. So it's been known for some time that ketones themselves, particularly beta-hydroxybutyrate, reduces reactive oxygen species, what we used to call free radicals. And also it activates the AMPK pathway. That stands for activated protein kinase. Now, one of the things with that pathway, when the AMP pathway is activated, it inhibits a lot of the inflammatory pathways. So that's one way that being in ketosis kind of helps those things. Now, interestingly enough, we talked about reactive oxidative species, which comes from oxidative stress. Many of the neurodegenerative diseases that we've talked about, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, those things, are highly affected by oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. So, and there is research going on, with ketogenic diets into those things. So I think that's the avenue that they have. So there's been some fairly recent research into an immune system receptor called the NLRP3 inflammasome. I may have to look down to make sure that I say that all right and don't get it mixed up in the wrong way. But the NLRP3 inflammasome, it's something that we want. I mean, it's a good thing to have in our bodies. it kind of senses that inflammation and it does a good job. The problem is when we have chronic inflammation, maybe even from what we're eating on a daily basis, that inflammasome can be overactivated, and then that's going to lead to some really, really big issues. So they found in this study that we're going to highlight on here that beta-hydroxybutyrate specifically, that was the only ketone of the three that worked this way. Beta-hydroxybutyrate actually inhibited or kind of turned down the activity of the NLRP3 inflammasome. So now we have a actual direct route of a ketone and anti-inflammatory effect.
Right, and at the beginning you said how the ketogenic diet has become somewhat synonymous with anti-inflammatory, being an anti-inflammatory diet, and you can see now clearly how that works in two different facets, right? Not only are you getting rid of all of the junk food, high carb type of foods that cause inflammation, you're also allowing your body to produce the ketones that are going to be the inflammation extinguishers. So you're tackling it from both sides, and we'll talk about how impressive it was in you for just a minute. But before we do that, let's find out how you found out you had high inflammation, and also how anybody else can. And I'll just name the test, and then you can talk about your results. One blood test that you should get done, we highly recommend, is called a high sensitivity C-reactive protein, HSCRP. And that is one of the standard tests that will easily show the level of inflammation in your body.
Right.
You want to share how yours has changed?
Right. So this is a simple blood test. You can get it in any doctor's office. And it stands, C-reactive protein is what they call an acute phase protein, that it is produced by the liver in response to higher levels of interleukin-6 in the bloodstream that is released from macrophages. So you have inflammation, the macrophages come in, they release its interleukin thing, it goes to the liver puts out CRP, and you can measure that. And that is kind of the way that they look at inflammation.
Okay.
So in 2014, I had a blood test. The first one in a long time at that point in time.
At that point, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't used to go to the doctor because I was in total denial. And I didn't like getting my blood taken at all. But I had a CRP that measured 4.2. And we'll put up the little graph. My doctor uses the Cleveland Heart Lab, so we're going to put up the little graph from the Cleveland Heart Lab that visually shows you kind of where things are at. Now, in the high levels of that, the red zone, the danger zone, they found a very high relationship of a high CRP with diabetes and cardiovascular disease, and risk of heart attack. So this is 2014. So fast forward, I'm at 4.2.
Yeah. You're up there in the red.
Yeah, I'm sky high. So in 2017, I started the ketogenic diet in January. I lost 80 pounds. And in 2018, I had another blood test and had my CRP measured again. And amazingly, I was at 0.6.
Yeah.
I mean, I had gone from one extreme to the very lowest extreme.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you that inflammation, I think, is the key to most disease processes. I don't care if you're talking about cholesterol and lipid panels and all that things. If your inflammation is under control, I think those things count for very, very, little, in the whole scheme of things.
I absolutely agree. It is the underlying problem of so many of our chronic diseases. It's almost like we look at stress. It's like, yeah, I know I'm under stress. Okay, I'll deal with it tomorrow.
Right.
That's how we look at inflammation in the body. But it is that ticking time bomb inside. And so what do? You change the food choices. It's the things that we've always talked about on this channel. Choose the healthy fats. So those would be your olive oils, your avocado oils, coconut oils. You can use MCT oil as an alternative to the harmful refined vegetable oils like soybean oil. Go for the high quality meats. If you can, go with grass-fed meats, the higher fat cuts. For your carbohydrates, go for the non-starchy vegetables. Make them your main carbohydrate in your diet. And then, you know, I mentioned healthy fats. Also go for foods that are high in omega-3s. Fish are very good for that. Try to include fish in your diet if you can. Cold water fish like salmon and sardines and anchovies and trout would be in there, but also shellfish like crabs and shrimp, things like of that sort, are very high in the rich omega-3 fatty acids. They'll counter the more inflammatory omega-6s.
Right.
So, you know, I realize there's a lot to put together, especially if you're just getting started. If you do want some plan to follow, we have resources over on our website. We have a 21-day keto challenge. You'll get daily menus, well-formulated keto menus sent to you each day for the challenge. It's a great place for you to start if you're looking for something. Hey, thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe to our channel before you go, and we will see you in the next video.
See ya. Ketogenic diets have become synonymous with lowered inflammation. Inflammation?